So I'm just joined here by Martin, who I'll be speaking about the current events in the UK economy and seeing how his opinions are on this. So Martin, Boris Johnson is under a lot of scrutiny at the moment for what's been going on in politics. I mean, last week in PMQs, he came under a lot of scrutiny from the Labour opposition for his allegations toward Keir Starmer. What are your thoughts on that? Do you think, as a position of power the Prime Minister in, do you think these things that he's been doing at the moment are okay, or do you think he should face reprimandations from people for what his actions have been?
I think what he did about the Keir Starmer thing was terrible, really. I think he was using this dead cat strategy where he was trying to deflect criticism from other things by throwing a piece of news on the table that would deflect criticism about all the Partygate stuff. It's a classic kind of Trumpian type of thing he was doing, which was to link Starmer with something that he had nothing to do with. And I think it's awful because it's lowering the level of debate, because people will believe that who aren't interested enough to actually find out the truth. And it lowers the quality of our politics further that has been going since Brexit. The level of debate has become so partisan that people can't have reasonable conversations where they have different views and discuss different views. It's become so bipartisan, almost like American politics, where you pick your tribe and you shout at the other side, and trying to find compromise, which is the only way forward with politics, is becoming harder and harder. Look, easy questions are simply resolved by people. They're done easily, but most questions are hard. They're grey areas, and that's what politics is about, is trying to find a compromise between different sides. But the more we have in a post-Trumpian system, people are entrenched, and so they don't want to compromise because that's seen as sort of selling out and betraying your tribe. So I think he epitomises what we've got post-2016, post-Brexit, where our politics has become very aggressive rather than progressive, and we seem to have got people in power that are only interested in being in power rather than actually trying to do something good for the sake of it. Other politicians before have had criticisms. You might have Blair for what he did with Iraq, or you might have others like Major or Thatcher, very divisive, but at least they were in politics to try and do something. They believed in what they thought and trying to make a difference. Well, I don't think Boris Johnson believes in anything apart from furthering his own career, and which seems to be an extension of the debating society at Eton.
And I mean, at the moment, we've had these COVID restrictions that have been very much eased. And at the moment, also, we've seen that Boris Johnson has proposed that the isolation might be just cut off completely, and, you should be able to go about your business even if you get COVID. You think this is a right move going forward, that he's saying that, if you even get COVID, that perhaps even at the end of this month, you should not even have to isolate? I mean, that's what's been heard from his cabinet as well, that he's planning to make such moves. Do you think this is a good move from him?
Yes. I think it's a time we all moved on. I think COVID is now, unless you are vulnerable, COVID is really becoming a sort of flu. And so to stop the world turning for something that is becoming more transmissible but less severe is wrong, and we need to all get on with our lives. This week my little boy has tested positive, so he's been off school. But he's perfectly fine. I've been testing every day and I've not got it. My partner's not got it. So I think it's time we all moved on. And though cynically, which one has to be these days, cynically you would say that Boris Johnson has brought that forward because it suits to try and put a bit of good news out. But there's a lot of bad news that drowns it out, so I'm not sure how effective it is. But I think it is time we all moved on.
And with the rising cost of energy bills also going up quite dramatically, with the caps coming off as well once again, I mean, they have put in some, policies to help those people by giving them that £200 loan. But do you think that's enough for the moment? With the state the economy is in, inflation hitting really high at the moment, I mean, some of the biggest numbers we've seen in a while. What do you think should be some of the things going forward introduced to stop, the current way that things are going? Do you think the politicians are handling this correctly, or do you think they should be doing better?
Well, I think that £200 thing is a short-term measure to try and take the edge off for the people in the most difficult positions. But we're in a situation where we've got inflation because of post-Brexit. rising costs have been imposed on businesses, but any business that hasn't had it are sticking on inflationary measures because there's a chance to do so. And that's the problem with inflation. What someone decides that everyone else is doing it, everyone gets on board because they're missing an opportunity. And that's what we're getting into at the moment, that all businesses are adding costs on because they think it's an opportunity to do so. A lot of very subtle and above my level of knowledge of economics have tried to bring that round. I assume bring up interest rates to try and get people to save more. But in the energy sector, we've got a problem because a lot of these private energy companies have seen not to really work, because we've got it's trying to be a private sector, but really it's underpinned by the public sector, and sometimes that breaks down. You can't have purely free market economics with providing statutory services, and when it gets problematic, the state has to step in, and that's what's happened now.
And the big question I have for you is, following the Partygate scandal, would you like to see Boris Johnson resign? And if so, who would you want to see to be the next leader of this country?
Would I want to see him resign? Not necessarily now. I'm quite happy to see him further implode and get thrown out by the rest of them. I think if he resigns, there'll be a lot of Johnson fans who'll turn him into a martyr. So I think if he continues with his poor decision making and he ends up where the rest of the Conservative Party feel his liability and remove him, then that would probably be the best thing. And I think Keir Starmer is trying to make the Labour Party a more centrist one than the left way it went under Corbyn, to make it more attractive to the middle ground. And then Labour can be a more attractive opposition. The only concern is the Tories then bring in someone else and they pretend that it's a new government, where really it's the same old Tories, but just with a different Prime Minister. And we don't want to see anyone like Liz Truss be Prime Minister. I think Rishi Sunak's all right. He seems an adult.